Blake Lively has always been the quintessential Hollywood golden girl, glamorous, poised, and seemingly unflappable in the face of countless paparazzi flashbulbs. But her recent feud with actor-director Justin Baldoni has shaken that pristine image to its core, erupting into headlines that go far beyond standard tabloid chatter. Sparked by a provocative Hollywood Reporter cover that portrayed Blake as wielding a literal slingshot at Baldoni, this controversy has ballooned into a full-scale meltdown, complete with accusations of misrepresentation, cultural misunderstanding, and even ominous hints of legal warfare. Now, the big question is whether this unraveling saga will mark the end of Blake's reign as one of Hollywood's most admired figures, or if the public will rally to her defense. In this deep dive, we'll sift through the bombshell allegations on both sides, from Blake's claims of being disrespected on set to Baldoni's insistence that his behavior was never intended to be invasive. We'll examine the swirling rumors of missing text messages, hidden agendas, and the possible role of other cast members who remain curiously silent. And throughout it all, we'll explore why this scandal has the potential to reshape how Hollywood and the rest of us talk about power, accountability, and the delicate line between personal conviction and cultural differences. It all began when The Hollywood Reporter dropped its controversial February 22nd issue. Front and center was an elaborate illustration of Blake Lively catapulting a slingshot toward Justin Baldoni. The cartoonish style might have been playful in another context, but here it felt like an unmistakable mockery. Within minutes of the cover reveal, the internet broke into frantic debate over what it implied. Was it calling out Lively as some power-hungry celebrity picking random fights, or suggesting she was a warrior pushing back against an industry full of double standards? Reactions on social media were swift and fierce. Supporters of Blake labeled the cover sexist, blasting The Hollywood Reporter for supposedly trivializing a serious workplace dispute. Skeptics, however, couldn't help but note that she seemed disproportionately outraged by something as relatively harmless as a cartoon. Memes sprang up overnight, with one particularly viral tweet reading, "If you can't handle a cartoon, how do you survive Hollywood?" Behind the scenes, Blake's PR machine fired back at full throttle. Public statements described the cover as problematic and demeaning, arguing it misrepresented Blake's advocacy for women. Her camp also implied that the image reinforced old-fashioned stereotypes about emotional females. Yet critics shot back that these accusations felt flimsy, given that the real story appeared more nuanced. Indeed, the feud itself involved cultural tensions, personal grievances, and a laundry list of contradictory details that no satirical artwork could fully capture. While the illustration might have catalyzed the latest uproar, Blake Lively has weathered smaller storms before. She's faced condemnation for throwing lavish parties with questionable themes, and some critics pointed out her 2012 wedding at a plantation site, an incident that later led to public apologies and attempts at damage control. At times, Blake's social media presence has also come under fire for being tone-deaf, especially when discussing societal issues. But through it all, Blake's brand survived, thanks in part to her charming on-screen roles and a persona that gracefully navigated talk shows, red carpets, and motherhood revelations. She presented herself as someone who champions female empowerment, freely speaking her mind about everything from beauty standards to pay gaps. Hence, many fans were stunned when allegations arose suggesting she might have employed heavy-handed tactics on set, clashing with Justin Baldoni in ways that some describe as dictatorial. For his part, Baldoni arrived in the public eye mainly through his role on Jane the Virgin, gaining a reputation for earnestness, empathy, and an outspoken desire to put kindness at the forefront of Hollywood. He has also been open about his Baha'i faith, and colleagues often describe him as warm and physically demonstrative, traits that can be interpreted as affectionate or invasive, depending on personal comfort levels. When murmurs emerged that Blake found Baldoni's style problematic, the gossip mill kicked into overdrive. Did she genuinely feel uncomfortable, or was it an overreaction fueled by personality clashes? From a distance, the allegations against Baldoni might seem clear-cut. Repeated hugs without explicit permission, praying out loud on set, and adding unscripted intimacy during certain scenes. Yet each time Blake's team insists these behaviors crossed a line, Baldoni's camp provides a radically different perspective. Sources close to Baldoni argue that he never acted outside the established boundaries of the production, maintaining that any physicality was part of the script or had been discussed in advance. One detail raising eyebrows is the rumored disappearance of specific text messages from Blake's updated filings. Early on, she and her lawyers included certain messages as smoking gun, evidence of Baldoni's alleged misconduct. But after the scandal gained momentum, these texts vanished from subsequent legal documents, prompting speculation that they might have undercut Blake's narrative more than they supported it. Skeptics now wonder if these missing messages reveal that her claims were exaggerated or taken out of context. Supporters of Blake insist that the so-called missing texts were removed merely to streamline the legal arguments and that nothing material was lost. Yet critics see it as a glaring red flag. If the texts truly supported her story, why remove them at all? This secrecy has cast a long shadow over the entire confrontation, fostering an atmosphere of suspicion. As coverage intensifies, multiple insiders have come forward with tales of Blake's influence behind the camera. Allegedly, she leveraged her star power to steer directorial choices, rewrite parts of the script, and override production team decisions. One rumor even claims she insisted on last-minute reshoots for a pivotal scene, leaving everyone scrambling to accommodate her. In Hollywood, star-driven demands aren't exactly new. But if these stories are accurate, they suggest that Blake wasn't a mere actress passively suffering under a hostile environment. She may have been orchestrating key elements of the film from start to finish. The fundamental question becomes, if she was so uneasy about Baldoni's behavior, why not cut it off early via the authority she already held? This line of inquiry is precisely why some commentators label her meltdown calculative. They argue that by adopting the role of a wronged figure, Blake can shield herself from criticism about her own creative overreach. Whether that's the truth or just another conspiracy theory depends on evidence yet to be revealed. But that wasn't the whole story. The phrase is repeated in every blog post dissecting this feud, because each time we think we've reached the core conflict, another revelation pops up, like the hush-hush involvement of other cast members who might have filed HR complaints. Enter Jenny Slate, the comedy actress rumored to have lodged her own workplace complaint against Baldoni. But no one, outside a tight legal circle, knows what she truly documented. Insiders speculate that if her complaint aligns with Blake's version, it could indicate a wider pattern of Baldoni making multiple co-stars uncomfortable. Others insist her grievance was personal and unrelated, possibly about scheduling conflicts or pay discrepancies. The silence from Slate herself is deafening. When a person declines to comment publicly on a swirling scandal, it often means they're either legally restricted from doing so, or they have no desire to get entangled in a messy fight between big-name colleagues. In either scenario, her silence leaves the door open for endless interpretation and keeps the rumor mill churning. As journalists scramble to verify facts, the absence of a clear statement from these possible witnesses underscores the complexities of Hollywood's hush-hush culture. People don't speak up unless they feel safe or have something undeniably concrete to share, particularly when massive career implications hang in the balance. Whether Jenny Slate's alleged complaint bolsters Blake's claims or dismantles them, her involvement remains a significant unknown that could tip public opinion one way or the other. Baldoni's supporters often frame the crux of this feud as a collision between two drastically different mindsets, one shaped by a faith and cultural background that emphasizes warmth and openness, and another that interprets such behavior through a modern lens of professional boundaries. According to sources close to Baldoni, he's always been physically expressive, not out of malice but out of genuine care and respect, a product of his upbringing as a Baha'i. Handshakes might become hugs. A meeting could start with a brief prayer for unity. To some, these gestures are heartwarming. To others, especially in the post-#MeToo era, any unsolicited closeness can ring alarms. What complicates matters further is that mainstream Hollywood often champions the idea of respecting boundaries and obtaining explicit consent, yet the industry is also composed of thousands of personal nuances and cultural variations. Blake's team has latched onto these unwanted displays as clear acts of crossing her comfort line, contending they were repeated despite her voicing objections. They highlight stories of other female colleagues allegedly put off by Baldoni's touchy-feely demeanor. However, skeptics note that few of these women have come forward by name, making it hard to verify whether this pattern truly exists or if it's being overblown. One reason this saga has triggered such an intense reaction is the specter of real victims who struggle to be believed. Pundits worry that high-profile, ambiguous disputes risk undermining legitimate cases of misconduct, particularly if details turn out to be exaggerated or self-serving. Some industry insiders argue that Blake's meltdown and the subsequent outcry might overshadow or delegitimize other, more clear-cut accounts of harassment. In an era where survivors of exploitation are finally breaking their silence, the stakes couldn't be higher. On one hand, it's crucial to take allegations seriously, no matter how they come to light. On the other, if those allegations prove shaky under scrutiny, it provides ammunition for skeptics who claim many claims are fabricated. This delicate balance is precisely why the uncertain evidence, missing texts, and hush-hush witnesses matter so much. From the outside looking in, Baldoni's side claims they're standing firm on a foundation of verifiable proof, namely recordings, timestamp messages, and eyewitness accounts that refute or reinterpret Blake's story. They argue that if she truly was outraged or scared, she wouldn't have participated enthusiastically in intimate scenes or encouraged emotional group prayers. Blake's camp fires back that it's easy to appear compliant under peer pressure, especially when cameras roll. As if the press war weren't enough, legal maneuvers from both camps have turned this fiasco into a ticking time bomb. Blake's attorneys teased an amended lawsuit that, according to leaked documents, expands on accusations ranging from defamation to emotional distress. One particular bombshell was the claim that multiple women on set reportedly confided in Blake about feeling uneasy around Baldoni. Critics note that this new complaint provides scant details, no names, no specific dates, no direct quotes. Meanwhile, Baldoni's legal team, led by a powerhouse attorney known for cutting through theatrics, wasted no time denouncing the amended complaint as baseless and deceptive. They accused Blake's side of using the courts as a PR tool to generate sympathy. Court documents suggest that Baldoni's lawyers intend not just to defend him but to press for a countersuit, possibly claiming that these allegations have torpedoed his reputation, causing real financial and emotional damage. In short, we have a legal standoff where both sides are brandishing major accusations and toying with the possibility of a protracted court battle. Hollywood is no stranger to high-stakes lawsuits, but the swirling mixture of faith, feminism, cultural norms, and celebrity star power sets this showdown apart. The potential fallout extends beyond these two individuals to broader issues of how the entertainment world regulates itself. A focal point of Blake's complaints has been the infamous slow dance scene, which she claims was filmed in a way that added intimate gestures without her consent. She alleges Baldoni leaned in for forehead kisses and tender caresses that were never scripted and, according to her, felt invasive. Baldoni's team, however, counters with raw footage and statements from production staff. They maintain every motion had been choreographed, or at least approved in concept, long before the cameras rolled. The controversy exploded further when The Hollywood Reporter cited an intimacy expert who agreed Blake's boundaries might have been crossed, yet this expert never set foot on that set. Critics pounced on the disconnect. How could someone with no direct involvement possibly validate or invalidate what truly happened in the moment? It underscored the notion that many people weighing in are doing so from a distance, relying on secondhand accounts. Adding yet another twist, eyewitnesses claim that the slow dance scene took multiple takes, during which Blake displayed no signs of discomfort. She reportedly laughed and nodded whenever Baldoni or the director suggested new angles. While it's entirely possible she felt pressured to go along, the discrepancy between her apparent participation then and her outrage now raises pressing questions about authenticity. In the midst of this mess, a handful of Hollywood figures have started whispering their thoughts. Some have quietly sided with Baldoni, praising his history of compassion on set. One assistant from a previous project described him as the one person who stays late just to help tear down a set, suggesting that malicious intent isn't in his nature. Others, more aligned with Blake, argue that celebrities can be charming in one context and overbearing in another. At award shows and private dinners, the conversation has evolved into heated debates over whether this entire situation is a prime example of the modern impulse to conflate uncomfortable moments with absolute wrongdoing. Industry professionals are cautioning that not all tension or friction is automatically harassment or abuse, that nuance can get lost in a climate hungry for scandal. Meanwhile, real talk is happening among women in Hollywood who want to protect themselves from genuine predators but worry about the movement's credibility when accusations appear to hinge on ambiguous evidence. It's a thorny topic. How do you support individuals who say they felt violated while also ensuring the accused have a fair chance to clear their name? Even Blake's staunchest fans admit the intensity of her meltdown feels extreme. Her earlier activism centered on positivity and unity, raising eyebrows now that she's going after a fellow actor with what some describe as scorched earth tactics. Public relations professionals speculate she might be trying to strike first before her own actions on set come under more scrutiny. But Blake's allies refute any notion of cynicism, insisting she's legitimately distressed. They say she's outraged that so many people dismiss her claims as a cultural misunderstanding. According to them, repeated boundary violations remain violations, regardless of a person's background or intentions. You can't hide behind faith or hug culture if someone tells you no and you persist, one insider commented anonymously. Yet outside observers can't ignore how her stance conveniently overshadows the points raised against her. The alleged micromanagement, the controlling creative vision, the rumor she strong-armed producers into rewriting entire scenes. Each side continues to accuse the other of using half-truths to bolster their reputations. If Jenny Slate does come forward, it could change everything. If her complaint or testimony supports Blake's story, that would solidify claims that Baldoni consistently made women on set uncomfortable. Conversely, if her grievance details something unrelated, say, pay equity or an unrelated dispute, then it pokes a giant hole in the notion that multiple women were uneasy about his conduct. The fact that Slate has neither publicly confirmed nor denied the contents of her HR complaint leaves the entire puzzle incomplete. Still, her involvement looms like a wild card that could flip the narrative overnight. Nobody, it seems, is quite sure if her revelations will catapult Blake's meltdown into righteous territory or confirm suspicions that this entire scandal is inflated. A recurring theme in online debates is whether Blake is using scandal as a stepping stone for more coverage. While it's cynical, Hollywood is famous for storylines that blur the line between real anguish and a well-orchestrated attention grab. It's no secret that controversies can fuel media cycles, keep names trending, and sometimes even boost a star's profile, especially if the star can later claim victory or vindication. However, accusing someone of faking distress is a serious charge. If Blake's meltdown is sincere, trivializing it could be a grave injustice. On the other hand, if her meltdown is a smokescreen for questionable motives, then the damage to actual victims of workplace misconduct is significant. That tension between empathy and skepticism fuels the relentless chatter on Twitter, Instagram, and gossip columns. Whether or not Blake's meltdown is justified, one outcome is certain. Hollywood is taking notes. Executives who once greenlit star-centric productions without a second thought are now warier of behind-the-scenes power imbalances. Lawyers are advising studios to craft more robust guidelines around on-set interactions, cultural expressions, and intimacy coordination, even in scenes that don't necessarily seem intimate. Meanwhile, activism within the industry is at a crucial crossroads. Many want to champion zero-tolerance policies for harassment, but they also fear the label harassment is losing its potency if invoked in complicated, ambiguous scenarios. Some directors worry about being overly policed for spontaneous creativity, while others believe that strict boundaries are essential to maintaining professionalism. For Blake, this drama could mark a significant turning point in her career. If fans perceive her as overreaching or manipulative, the public's affection might dwindle. Hollywood has been historically fickle. A single misstep can topple even the biggest names, although some eventually rebound if they master the art of public apology or rebranding. For Baldoni, the stakes revolve around clearing his name and preserving the brand he's meticulously built, one rooted in empathy, mindfulness, and inclusive storytelling. If he successfully disproves Blake's allegations, he could emerge as someone who stood firmly by his personal convictions. But if more evidence surfaces that paints him as genuinely dismissive of boundaries, his brand could collapse under the weight of hypocrisy. The story of the missing or heavily edited text messages has become emblematic of why people struggle to trust either side fully. The initial complaint contained snippets of conversation that seemed damning for Baldoni, until they vanished or were heavily trimmed in the amended lawsuit. Were those texts exculpatory in nature, meaning they cleared Baldoni more than they accused him? Blake's legal representatives say no, insisting they merely removed redundant material. Baldoni's team, in contrast, implies the texts contradict Blake's claims of feeling cornered or helpless. According to them, the full context might show Blake consenting to certain interactions or praising Baldoni's approach on set before abruptly changing her stance. Without direct access to these messages, the public is left guessing, a state of limbo that only deepens existing distrust. Behind every Hollywood scandal is a parallel war among PR experts. Blake's advisors have spun the story as a case of a powerful man crossing lines despite repeated objections. Baldoni's strategists frame it as a meltdown from someone who, ironically, had significant creative power but chose to sensationalize differences instead of solving them. Media outlets, hungry for page views, amplify the conflict with sensational headlines, fueling rumor and speculation. Each new detail, legit or not, becomes another piece in a puzzle that might not even form a coherent picture. Meanwhile, average viewers are left picking sides based on partial information and personal biases, whether that stems from admiration for Blake's past work or respect for Baldoni's philanthropic endeavors. The possibility of countersuits looms large, especially if Baldoni's lawyers can prove defamation or reputational harm. If he can show that Blake knowingly distorted facts for publicity or personal gain, the legal ramifications could be severe. Conversely, if Blake provides credible proof of wrongdoing, Baldoni's brand and career might face irreversible damage. It's a delicate dance. Each side runs the risk of overplaying their hand in court. The moment a key piece of evidence emerges, like a damaging text or an email that contradicts sworn statements, everything could change. Whichever side finds themselves caught in a lie risks not only losing in the legal arena but also being buried by public scorn. Ironically, the comedic slingshot image from The Hollywood Reporter remains a potent symbol for the entire fiasco. It suggested that Blake is the aggressor, lashing out at Baldoni with cartoon-level vigor. Her outraged response to it underscores how a single piece of art can ignite an inferno. Had Blake chosen to laugh it off or address the underlying issues more quietly, perhaps this wouldn't have escalated to the point of legal meltdown. Yet here we are, dissecting every rumor and every statement. The cover itself may go down as one of the most infamous in recent entertainment journalism, less for its artistic merit and more for how it inadvertently laid bare Hollywood's culture of spin, power struggles, and fragile reputations. As the dust continues to swirl, everyone seems to have an opinion, but the truth remains maddeningly elusive. Will we see an out-of-court settlement that locks away most details and NDAs? Or is a high-profile trial looming where the public might finally get a glimpse of unfiltered evidence? There's also the question of how streaming platforms or studios might respond. If the project at the center of this dispute suffers at the box office or on a major streaming service, the blame game could intensify. Studio heads may think twice about hiring both Blake or Baldoni for future collaborations, worried that even the faintest whiff of controversy can scare off audiences and sponsors. Meanwhile, fans of both actors are left in a strange limbo, anxiously refreshing social feeds, scanning headlines, and trading theories in comment sections. The tension has created a rift in entertainment circles. Some wholeheartedly believe Blake, while others see her meltdown as a sensational hoax. Baldoni's supporters label him the victim of a smear campaign, whereas his detractors say he's using his cultural background as a shield against accountability. This entire drama is a cautionary tale about the volatility of power and perception in Hollywood. At first glance, it seemed like a shallow fight. A magazine cover roasted Blake, and she retaliated. But dig a little deeper, and you'll find layers of conflicting evidence, legal jousting, cultural complexities, and personal grievances that stretch beyond one actress versus one actor. Where the truth ultimately lies may depend on who dares to produce verifiable evidence in the bright light of day. If missing texts surface, if Jenny Slate breaks her silence, or if previously anonymous crew members decide to speak up, this dispute might undergo another seismic shift. For now, we're watching two strong-willed people locked in a public standoff, each claiming the moral high ground, and each convinced the other is twisting reality. Will Blake Lively's meltdown prove the final nail in the coffin of her carefully curated image, or can she reinvent herself yet again? Will Justin Baldoni walk away unscathed, or does he risk losing hard-won credibility if new allegations stick? Most Hollywood dramas end with a clean resolution, but real-life scandals rarely do. All we can do is keep our eyes on the story as it unfolds and remember that, beneath all the glitz and spectacle, these are real people with real reputations on the line. It's a reminder of how quickly narratives can spin out of control once the media storm gains traction, and how challenging it is to separate fact from fabrication in a world where everyone has something to lose. Thank you for joining this deep dive. If anything is certain, it's that this meltdown signals a pivotal moment, not just for Blake and Baldoni, but for the entire entertainment industry's ongoing battle between transparency, accountability, and the relentless pursuit of star power. Stay tuned, because in Hollywood, the real endings often surface only when the cameras stop rolling, and here, the final scene is far from written.